Hello and welcome to Crisis Cast. This is our third episode. This is a podcast presented by the students of S.H.I.E.L.D. and we're reading all kinds of things related to DC Comics crisis crossovers and Earth jumping and all things related to that. And this episode, we're talking about Green Lantern hanging out with Green Lantern and Adam hanging out with Adam. My name is Vincent, and who are my wonderful guests today? Slash co-host.
I am Dan of Earth 1.
I am Dan of Earth 2.
And I'm Mike. I'm Mike Prime.
So first, we're talking about some Green Lantern issues, and I will start us off with Green Lantern number 40. This issue is from October 65. So we have on the splash, it teases Hal Jordan and Alan Scott facing off against each other. And the credits here, we have John Broome writing. He writes all of these Green Lantern issues. And we have Gil Kane, who draws every issue in this entire episode. And I wanted to note that, so Gil Kane, at this point, he's juggling Green Lantern and the Atom. Last episode, we talked about all Flash issues. And that was Carmine Infantino, who at this point, he would, alongside Flash, he would either be juggling Adam Strange or Batman, depending on exactly what issue, what era we're talking about. So this issue, Green Lantern 40, we're supposed to get the secret history of the Guardians. And Hal and Alan, they've already met each other actually in two annual crossovers between the Justice League and the Justice Society, which we'll get to next episode. And Alan Scott and his buddy Doiby Dickles, which is supposed to be Derby, which is somehow a nickname. Well, I don't know if it comes from his real name, which is Charles. That's his nickname, but he goes by Doiby. Somehow my entire life I've thought it was Dolby. I don't know why. I just can't read and stuck around. But the two of them go to a Come As You Were party, which I've never heard of in my life. And it's some kind of themed party where you come dressed up, but also like role-playing, like the position in life that you were 20 years ago or in some point in the past. I don't understand the point of it, but Alan Scott, he's now a broadcasting executive in Gotham City. But this is, since it's a Come As You Were, he's role-playing as his previous radio announcer role. And Doiby Dickles used to just be his taxi cab driver, and now he's just his taxi cab driver. But he's more like his slightly more important, like, right-hand man. So he sees a meteor coming down, so he puts on his costume, and Doiby tries to help him out and just crashes into a tree, which gets us to things acting weird because now Green Lantern's weakness, his usual weakness of wood, is not applying. So Scott decides, oh, wow, my weakness doesn't work anymore. So let me go tell the other Green Lantern, because his weakness, which is possibly equally stupid, which is the color yellow, maybe his weakness is fine. And remember last episode, The Flash, he vibrated super fast, and that works because he has these crazy speed powers. And in fact, he had to go to very specific places. He always went to the community center and vibrated on stage. And then on Earth 2, they always moved, transported worlds from like this cornfield right outside the city. But Green Lantern, he can just cleave the vibratory barrier between worlds with his powers and seemingly anywhere he wants. And then things get really stupid with just powers being even more unclear because Alan Scott is able to leave Hal Jordan a mental message. And so then Hal's ring talks to him and we just get a shitload of lore dumped on us. So the Owens were an immortal race living in paradise, and one of them named Krona wanted to see the origin of the universe. and the origin of the universe is like a hand floating with stuff in it.
As seen in Justice League, the animated series.
Yep. And him trying to look into the past and see that origin, it somehow releases evil on the world because of karma or whatever. But he wanted to see even further back. But to punish him, the Owens trapped him in like a form of energy and just shot him off into the sky as like a comet. And then following that, they start calling themselves the Guardians, and their mission is combat evil in the universe. And they enlist Green Lanterns as their agents of peace, their intergalactic cops. And some point along the way, they shrunk down into creepy balding fucks.
Evolution for you.
They just say that like these immortal people who live these great lives, and then somehow they turned into like 3 foot tall bald men. And in this, we don't get much of a reference at all, mostly because I don't think it has been figured out yet. We don't get any reference to the Zamorans and how the Owens, the females, split off. Even though the Zamorans kind of exist at this point, and also we see female Owens in the past. But apparently Krona, since Alan Scott tried to fight the energy meteor, Krona was able to get himself in Alan Scott's ring, and so then he restores himself to his bodily form, which causes resurging evil through the world, which basically just means natural disasters. So Alan Scott and Hal Jordan team up to fight a mountain, and then they fight a cloud. And I'm not sure if this cloud fight is better than the cloud fight that Storm has in Inhumans versus X-Men.
It's also better than the cloud fight that Hal Jordan has in his movie.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's what you're gonna mention.
And then back to powers being ridiculous. All right. Alan Scott's ring is not the same as Hal Jordan's ring, even though they kind of pretend that it is sometimes in this. And so Alan Scott's ring, and some of this is through retcons, it's like more mystical, and so he can kind of do whatever the fuck he wants. But Hal Jordan, using his ring, somehow summons silver iodide, which destroys the cloud. Whatever. And then we get another just weird twist, because the Dick Guardians show up and demote Hal Jordan in favor of Alan Scott, even though this was kind of all Alan Scott's like problem in the first place. And this happens right before they go and actually try and fight Krona. But it turns out Krona took over Scott's body and is mentally controlling the Guardians to do this. And so then we get a duel between them. And Hal gets the shit beaten out of him. And so then Krona goes off to plan and his experiment to discover more of the origin of the universe. Alan somehow transfers his like consciousness or something to Hal's ring and helps him out. And ultimately, they save the day, and the Guardians turn Krona back into an energy meteor and just promise that he will never run into anything again. Which, like, you think they'd think of a better solution. And I'm trying to think, Mike would know this better than me. I don't know, does Krona show up again?
Oh, yeah. He's like the big bad of like the last third of Johns' Green Lantern run.
Okay, that's what I expected. So that's pretty much all that happens here, but I wanted to mention, so some of us are reading certain scans in certain places and everything like that, and there's an ad in this issue originally for the Starman and Black Canary team-up feature, which ran in Brave and the Bold, but it only ran 2 issues, but there was also a Dr. Fate and Our Man team-up for 2 issues in Showcase, and all those 4 stories take place on Earth 2, but there isn't actually any crossover. Like, they don't hang out with anyone from Earth 1. There's not a ton of mention. So they're not really relevant. So we are skipping those. Because, of course, if we covered every story taking place on Earth 2, or just all the Justice Society stories, this podcast would be way longer.
Also for Krona, you remember that Ganthet's Tales book you gave me?
Yeah.
He's the villain in that too.
Okay.
So I guess moving forward to our second issue, we have the Green Lantern number 45. Same creative team here, but this time, Hal and Alan Scott are facing Prince Peril, who I know nothing about this villain, but he's kind of very Kirby-esque in his design.
This is basically his only appearance. He shows up in like an issue of Green Lantern Quarterly or whatever, Green Lantern Corps Quarterly from the 90s, but I think it might be a flashback.
So Dobie and Alan Scott are back on Earth 2, and they just kind of get roped into this. This princess from like another dimension comes down, and she's like, "We need your help." And Dobie's already in love with her, but Prince Peril comes and captures her, and Alan Scott gets beat up because he tries to fight him. And then they go and get Hal. So, oh my god, I'm dying. My favorite part though is when they're trying to. I'm always horrible trying to describe these fucking plots of these 50s comics just because I'm like trying to get the cohesion to. But when they go to get Hal Jordan, the cab is flying, and Dobie throws up a signal of just the Green Lantern signal in the sky, and Hal's like, "Oh, I guess I gotta go." He's mid-flight in one of his test pilot planes. So he just dives out of that. So I can only assume that thing crashed to the ground and exploded.
I thought it said that he put it on like autopilot and it would just land itself. You know, because landing is something you could do with a computer back in the 50s.
Yeah, I guess just lay on the beach and I'll pick it up later.
Like, yeah, I'll just like leave it by the lake until I come back for it. The company, won't notice that I've been gone for hours or anything.
I like to imagine, because Hal Jordan is kind of a reckless guy, that he just does let it crash though. So he tries his hand at fighting Prince Peril and doesn't do so well the first go around. Gets thrown through a wall, and it's like for some reason they're like at this old Wild West kind of setting. I forget what it is. They're fighting on they're fighting on like a film lot or something. Mm-hmm. So he gets him into the cell, and he lifts it up and just clocks Hal Jordan with it. Like he just lifts up the whole jail cell. So I believe near the end here. Oh, by the way, Gardner Fox just shows up and he's like, "Oh, how do you think this is going to end?" So Grant Morrison, you weren't putting yourself in stories.
No, it's Kane that shows up.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not Gardner Fox, because he writes the Atom issues. He was in the line. Yeah, it's Gil Kane that shows up. I'm sorry. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, I guess Grant Morrison isn't as unique for doing that in Animal Man. But I believe somehow telepathically Alan Scott and him switch rings, right? And that's how he's able to. No, that's another story. I can't remember how this ends.
Powers, right?
What?
Don't they combine their ring powers or no?
Yeah, they combine their ring powers.
That was the next one.
Yeah, like that's the problem. All the stories are running.
No, I think.
To fill in some of this, I just want to say there's a great moment where Hal and Alan, they initiate a cross-dimensional phone call with their rings.
Yeah, that's what they're doing.
And there's just this like wacky, like kind of cosmic art, and it almost looks like a Kirby Dots or like Ditko, like Doctor Strange thing, but it's Gil Kane, and it's just very strange.
If you look at all the designs though in this other dimension in Peril's universe, they're all very Jack Kirby-esque though.
Yeah.
But they just meet up again and they just kind of sock the bad guy and all of his minions and win. But then Dobie marries the princess, and everything's happily ever after.
Which is supposed to be like a big reveal, because Gil Kane comes back and he's like, "Oh, it could have been Hal Jordan, it could have been Alan Scott, but no, they're back to their normal routine lives." And so Dobie is now the king of a foreign planet.
Well, that's because Alan Scott's supposed to be married to Rose Thorne.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of skipped this part, but if anyone else has any thoughts on these first two issues before we move to the next part.
I feel like I want to go back to the first issue real quick, because it seems to me like I'm just a little confused about like why are the Guardians so like obsessed with Krona not find out about the past? Like, why is that such an issue for them?
Well, I don't know specifically. I think it's just like a weird karma thing, but obviously in practicality, when he does try and learn, then it does release evil for some reason. So then once they learn that, they obviously want to prevent him from going any further.
I guess.
Well, the other thing is, like, this era of Green Lantern, continuity and power sets are all kind of out of whack.
Mm.
So, like I said in our little chat that we have, it's almost like a guy named Jeff shows up decades later and fixes everything.
Yeah, so we'll see.
But Dan, take us to Green Lantern 52.
All right. So I guess before I go into the synopsis, this was actually my first time I actually read any Green Lantern issues. So my first exposure with the character. Overall, pretty good experience. I really enjoyed reading these and the Atom issues, as we'll discuss later. But so my issue was Green Lantern, Volume 2, number 52. This was published in April of 1967. So basically, this one is kind of piggybacking a little bit off of the last issue, where, like we said before, Doiby gets married to Princess. What's her name again? Princess.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Something with an M, maybe.
I think it's something with an R.
It's like Ramia or Rania.
Oh, I know. I thought it was just Princess Peril.
No.
No.
Oh,
Prince Peril is the villain.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. But yeah, so anyway, he gets married to the princess. So we have that, and we open up to Pieface pulling out a paper, and I guess Pieface is like the unofficial like like recorder. Is that his name?
That's
Hal Jordan's buddy.
What?
It's like his mechanic or whatever.
his name is Thomas Kalmaku. Pieface is the like sort of racial slur that Hal Jordan calls him.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I mean that's what he even calls himself that in the book. But
That's
like,
what I'm saying. Like, if he called himself it, I mean, how bad can it be? I mean, I don't know. Anyway,
Probably
so
very.
I guess, yeah. So he pulls out this book, and he's talking to the audience and says, like, I'm going to recount to you a story about Green Lantern, because now Hal is out. He left, I guess, Coast City for some reason, and he is gone. So Pieface is recounting the story that happened, and
Every time you say it, it just doesn't sound right.
all right, well, I'm done saying it now. So anyway, so we open up to Alan Scott and Hal Jordan just chilling out in like a cafe, and Alan and decides, maybe we should take Doiby's car, which is Goitrude. Is that what it is?
yeah.
Goitrude. We should take his, sentient car back to him, to this planet that he's living with.
It hasn't been sentient to date.
Okay, it's not sentient. Okay, but yeah, so they decided to take this car back to Doiby in this other dimension that he's living in with the princess, because it's their first year anniversary coming up. They think it'd be a good idea to take it back to him as like a gift for, I guess, being with this chick for a year, because I think they're both shocked that he actually ended up marrying this person. But anyway, so they go to Hal's garage, which is where the car is being stored, because I guess once all this stuff happened in the last issue we discussed, the car was just left for Hal to keep, I guess, in the other dimension. So he has it in his car, and or has it in his house, and he goes to open up the garage, and the car's missing. And they're like, oh, it must have been stolen. It's weird because my nice, sports car is not stolen, but Goitrude's missing. So so they're searching all over the place to find the car, and then we actually see the car driving around and go into the scene of a burglary where the car actually lets the burglars into the car, and the burglars are like, okay, no one's driving the car, but we need to escape, so let's just jump into this car and run away. So they run away, and they actually the Green Lanterns actually end up finding the car, and the car just shoots out like these yellow beams that like immobilize the Green Lanterns.
Well, it doesn't even specifically reference that they're yellow. They just get defeated by high beam.
Oh yeah, I guess that's
the first time the car just turns the high beams on, and they're like, I can't see, and then it makes an escape.
Well, if they were yellow, I mean, I would understand. Like one of the Green Lanterns would have been immobilized because of that bullshit. Like, what's the?
It's a necessary impurity in the manufacture of the rings.
But,
yeah, but I'm confused.
A giant bug-like entity named Parallax.
So I'm confused. Like, maybe you guys can shed some more light on this. What is the extent of the yellow weakness? If he gets shined with yellow, or if he sees yellow, does he like become weak?
If you want to defeat Hal Jordan, just paint yourself yellow, and he'll be able to do nothing to you.
Yeah, do what Batman does. Paint yourself yellow, paint your sidekick yellow, and trap him in a bar where everything's yellow and serve him lemonade.
That's pretty screwed up. Yeah, so that's why I thought at first was the whole reason why he couldn't move. But that wouldn't explain the other one. Anyway, so the car gets away, and basically, I think the Green Lanterns eventually go try tracking it down again, and they run into it. What'd you say?
The car starts talking.
Yeah, it starts talking. They end up meeting up with it, and the car ends up talking again, like Ginger Dan said, and the car actually transforms into, I think, doesn't it explode or something?
Yeah, they use their beam to explode itself.
Yeah,
it paralyzes them and then forces their rings to attack the car.
Yep, and then the car turns into none other than Sinestro, which is
Sinestro is a Decepticon, confirmed.
Yes, exactly. So this is my first introduction to Sinestro in the comics. I mean, I know this is not his first appearance, obviously, but basically Sinestro hijacked the car because what happened was, I guess, Hal Jordan imprisoned Sinestro in a cube, like an amber cube, and just left him in his garage, which I don't think that's a good idea. And I guess over time,
Do you not leave your arch nemesis in your garage, Dan?
No. So apparently what the flaw was, the cube imprisoned Sinestro's body, but not his mind. So his mind was able to escape and, I guess, assimilate into Gertrude, the car, and that's how the car escaped. I think that's the correct thing, but Vince, is there anything you want to add about that?
Not really, but I think it's hilarious how Sinestro points out that he's put on some weight.
Yeah. He's like, I'm bigger than I was last time, and everyone's like, oh.
He did look a little beefy.
Yeah, so then what happens is Sinestro leaves because he's like, now I'm going to go attack the Guardians on Oa because I hate them and I'm evil. And he picks up all of the because the guys, the robbers, are still with him. So he just picks up all the robbers, like, you guys are coming with me. And I guess they get turned into evil Green Lanterns. Is that correct? I think they do.
Yeah, it's hilarious because they try and quit once they realize that it's Sinestro, but like they were totally fine working for a talking car.
Yeah, but like once we see,
and then they get matching outfits, but their skin also turns pink.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really weird because like I'm reading this issue and like it's a pretty long issue and like we get to the end and it kind of wraps up pretty quick. I mean, we have the army of Sinestro's group like fighting against Hal Jordan and
would you say a Sinestro Corps?
Possibly, but my favorite part of the whole scene is when they're going up to the ring because they actually end up stealing the what's that called, the lantern like battery? What is it?
The central power battery. Yeah,
the central power battery. They end up stealing it and they're going up and like powering up their rings and like. They have that whole saying that's the exact opposite of what Green Lantern says when he charges up his battery or his ring, I guess. And I thought that was funny how they're just called evil Green Lanterns. They're not like anything different. They're just inherently evil. So it's kind of like the same thing with like the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. It's like they're recognizing that they're evil instead of just saying they're a brotherhood. Anyway, so the Green Lanterns show up, end up beating the shit out of Sinestro through not using their rings. Actually, they actually just use their hand-to-hand fighting skills, which I thought was pretty cool.
Can we talk about one of Alan Scott's powers? Because apparently he can just turn. Sinestro has like 2 rings in this fight. He has his yellow one and then a Green Lantern one, and obviously Sinestro fires the yellow one at Hal Jordan since it's not going to do anything because it's yellow. And Alan Scott just turns the beam black because magic.
It looked really weird, like presented on like the page, because it just looked like it was just like a black ray, like with the yellow ring shooting out. I thought that was pretty weird, but yeah, that's funny. So they end up being Sinestro, and the 2 heroes actually end up presenting Doiby with a little mini version of Goitrud to take home with him to the princess.
Yeah, he doesn't want to take Goitrud back with him because it would look old compared to like the future tech or whatever that the planet has.
Well, it's weird because like I may have forgotten this, but like how did they end up like recreating Goitrud? Like, because didn't they get like blown up?
I don't know if a power ring can turn a different power ring's energy construct from yellow to black. I think they can rebuild a car.
Yeah, I must have missed that, but
I fuck if I know.
So the whole story is pretty much just Sinestro, hiding inside of a car to destroy the Green Lanterns, which is hilarious. I'm a little sad for Doiby though, because he lost his real Goitrud, and even referencing the last issue, before he even married the princess, he was very like hesitant about marrying her because he's like, but what about my car, Goitrud? I love her so much. And he's like, and then the princess is like, oh, I admire your like the way you express yourself. And I'm like, he was about to ditch you for a car. Like, what? So that's my issue that I decided to pick.
Still better than Barry Allen not buying a ring after he proposed a year ago, though.
Yeah, actually, that's more screwed up. So
I want to blame Iris on that one. Maybe Barry tried, and Iris was just like, no, I don't like that ring.
I mean, how mad do you think Barry? How mad do you think
buy a ring and then change it out later?
Yeah, but how
Seems
mad?
like a lot of work.
How mad would Iris be though if Barry picked a car over her?
Barry Allen probably would take a car over Iris.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not shocking at all. So, yeah.
But I will say, Dan, this cover for this issue is pretty iconic.
Oh yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's a great cover.
It's been homaged before, and quickly hinting on the yellow impurity as time would go on. So, like I said, it's really yellow is just on the color spectrum fear, and is really a giant alien bug creature that was trapped inside the central power body called Parallax. And that was freed in like 2004.
Mm-hmm.
So yellow then just became like, for rookie Green Lanterns, it just became something that would only affect rookie Green Lanterns because they haven't been like experienced enough to fight fear yet. So it really only affects rookie Lanterns now.
Awesome. Yeah, I had to say, like, after I know we're finishing up the Green Lantern stuff, and we're gonna go into the Atom stuff pretty soon here. But I mean, like, just looking back on it, for me at least, like reading these 3 issues really has my interest peaked now for Green Lantern. I really like the whole. It's a lot of cosmic stuff, so I think that's really cool. And like, but I just like the whole idea of Sinestro and a larger setup with the Guardians and all that stuff. So I might be looking to more Green Lantern stuff. So
you can go pick up 3 humongous omnibuses.
Are they out of print or no?
No, the first one's getting reprinted.
Okay, so
I think they're totally available.
Depends on some sites, but yeah, the first one, at least the first John's one, has been resolicited for reprints.
Oh, cool! I'll have to pick that up.
And I mean, also, Mike was already saying this, but you were joking about the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants and stuff like that. Sinestro's motivations are like 100,000 times more interesting.
Yeah,
like 40 years after this.
Sinestro's one of DC's best villains, actually.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like he just looking at him looks pretty cool. So I'm excited to read more about him.
Yeah. Does anyone have any final thoughts on just the Green Lantern chunk before we move on?
Well, I'm gonna pose Dan with the same question we had last time, which was, it was his first time reading Flash. So this time, your first time reading Green Lantern. What are your opinions on Hal Jordan and his Golden Age counterpart, Alan Scott?
I like them both. I mean, like, obviously, like we discussed with the last podcast, is the characterization at some points is just not there. I mean, it's the early 1960s, so like you don't really have a lot of characterization. But I mean, in terms of like the whole mythos of the Green Lanterns, like I'm interested in it. I think it's a really cool story, and not just the Jeff Johns stuff, but I want to read like a lot of the stuff from this era. I think it would be really cool.
Well, here's the thing with that. You really can't forget a lot of the stuff. Well, this era you can, but I was like, there's a certain era in the 80s and mid 90s that it's a little bit touchy.
Oh, okay, so but most of the stuff is collected then, right? Or
the Silver Age, yeah, there are two
Silver Ages, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I might need to look into that. So, but
But
yeah.
who has the better costume, Alan Scott or Hal Jordan?
I don't know. I like Hal Jordan's. It's just it's cleaner, and I mean, like, the only thing I don't like is like the white gloves. I mean, like, I don't know. I feel like there could have been a different color there, but no, I think it's very simplistic, both of them. So Alan Scott had its own stuff, but I like Hal's a little bit better. What about you guys?
I mean, I like the standard Green Lantern Corps uniform, but there's something about Alan Scott's Golden Age outfit that's classy.
Is it the collar?
I think it's the high collar and like giant, like pirate-esque puffy red shirt. There's something about that.
Yeah, all the Golden Age characters just have like that, like, I don't know. They all have like a very, like, I don't know, very different look, but they're all very unique. I like them a lot.
Well, when we get to the Atom, I don't like the Golden Age Atom's costume at all.
Yeah, not really.
Well, once we
I find
finish
it weird that his
glasses,
helmet doesn't connect. The Golden Age Atom, like,
yeah,
like his helmet doesn't connect to his shirt, and it's weird.
Yeah, it's annoying. It's like the early Captain. Well, I mean, we'll get to it. It's like the early Captain America, where it's like you can see his neck because the cowl doesn't go all the way down yet.
Oh yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah, but I think Gil Kane's Green Lantern, it's like one of the most iconic costume designs.
Oh yeah, totally.
He slightly altered it during the course of his run, like just once, where there was a major change. But other than that, that costume has mostly been completely unchanged since then.
Yeah, the only difference would be where the black and green starts. There was no green on the shoulders originally. It was just all on the torso.
Yeah, and then, well, I'll correct. There was. I can only really think of one major change and fuck up, which would be the New 52, where every character just got a stupid collar for like a few years.
But like, and then like excessive lines. I think like the New 52 Green Lantern suit's not terrible, just because there's not a lot you could add to it to begin with. Yeah. But Vince, I'll ask you this: in the Johns era, they kind of did this thing where like the Green Lantern symbol would illuminate and would be like outside the suit. So like on the suit itself would be black, but then like you'd have like a glowing Green Lantern like badge that would like shoot out. What do you think on that? I always thought it looked cool.
I don't know. It's kind of cool. It fits like the power set and the established visuals. It's fine.
And then I guess one of the only other things that would add is that John Stewart has green eyes when he uses his ring. I think he's the only one that has that.
Yeah.
Sounds correct.
And then obviously, I mean, yeah, other Lanterns have had slightly different costumes. Obviously, Kyle Rayner had his own thing, and Guy had his own, the double-breasted jacket thing.
I love Guy's costume. It's so good.
Yeah. But actually, Dan pointing out the white gloves, I've never really put a ton of thought into that. It is kind of weird that his gloves are white rather than green, because his boots are green. So his costume is three colors, but it's just the gloves that are white.
I mean, I think it makes sense because you need to have like a color that can contrast the green ring that he's wearing. So I mean, I guess that's probably why they went that route. But yeah, it's just weird.
I mean, John Stewart doesn't have gloves at all. Guy's doesn't have gloves, and Kyle Rayner has like these huge gauntlets. So like fingerless glove like gauntlets. So everyone does kind of have a different costume.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a while everyone has the green gloves. The white gloves though. Like why can't I remember his name? He trains everyone. Why can't I remember his name? Yeah, Kilowog has the white gloves too. So, and then so did Sinestro when he was a Green Lantern.
Mm.
But
All right, let's move into the Atom.
All right. So, first issue we read of the Atom was Atom number 29, came out in March. Definitely of this year. But the cover's kind of interesting. You have both the Silver and Golden Age Green Lanterns. Wow, sorry, I'm tired. Atoms.
it's been a
and
night.
battling the Thinker, and the Thinker's just using the Silver Age Atom to beat up the Golden Age one. So that's it's pretty fun. Let's see. Starts out. There's a TV actress who is just sobbing about how she's
What
her
happened?
character or whatever is never gonna see her baby again because someone's trying to steal it. And then just next panel, she's talking to the Atom's, I believe, fiance about how in her own personal life, her her in-laws are trying to steal her baby because her husband died or something, and they don't think she has the time to raise them. And then that immediately gets forgotten about for a bookend museum, I believe.
Which is insane.
Full of bookends.
Like
such a weird thing.
Well, here's the thing though. Dan for Dan of Earth 2, this is the fiance. Her name's Jean Loring. I want you to remember that name because in about 50 episodes, she'll come back up.
In a major
identity crisis.
Oh God.
In a very tragic way.
In a very kind of head-scratching way.
But yeah, so Jean Loring and Ray Palmer are just looking at extremely expensive bookends because that's a thing you can make, and they just start being super nauseous and I believe Ray describes it as the bends, and just the Thinker comes out of nowhere and starts stealing bookends because why not? And I'm pretty sure in the fight he says this bookend will mark your end, little man, to the Atom as he's 6 inches tall, and it's just a 14 karat gold brick. It's not even yes, you could use it as a bookend, but that wasn't made to be that. It's weird. But so a fight ensues. He almost gets harpoon gunned because the Thinker's henchmen are aquatic themed, I guess. I don't know. At this point, the Thinker escapes to Earth 2, and the Atom follows him. And just to connect these Crisis Cast episodes a little bit, I think the Thinker took a page out of the Shades book because what he's doing is going to Earth 1, stealing stuff, and then coming back to Earth 2, where, the things aren't stolen, so it doesn't matter.
I was going to mention.
Yeah.
No, I was going to mention that because I saw the similarity there too. But
yeah.
Continue.
And then he drives home, puts the news on as you do, and there's a news bulletin about how the Thinker struck a rare bookend exhibit and made off with a fortune in valuable book supporters. And he's just like, what? Because he was in Earth 1, so he doesn't understand how people on Earth 2 would know about it. So he freaks out a little bit because obviously he went to Earth 1 so he wouldn't have to deal with police. And we then go to a man named Artie. I forget his last name, but he is a former criminal that at some point in time, the Golden Age Atom Al Pratt helped him to get off the streets and stop being a criminal and lead a good life. And there's just fancy bookends by his bed, and his wife is just like, the hell, you're stealing stuff again. And he obviously has no memory of ever stealing anything. And so this point, we move on to the Golden Age Adams. It's a class he's teaching at Calvin College, and Artie gives him a call, hoping that the Atom can help him clear his name. So Al Pratt goes into his car, which then transforms into a different car, the Atomobile, if you will.
It's awesome.
I mean, that's a car I wouldn't mind driving around. And so basically they come to this conclusion, both the Thinker and Al Pratt, that there must be, well, at least for the Thinker, he realizes that when he goes to Earth 1, his thinking capped telekinetic mind waves or something somehow do something on Earth 2 and basically mind controls Artie to do whatever he's doing. So he sets up a little experiment where he goes to Earth 1 to steal some paintings, and Al Pratt tails Artie as he goes to a museum to steal a painting, much like the Thinker is supposedly doing on Earth 1. Al Pratt then tries to fight Artie, and for those of you that don't know, Golden Age Adam's power set has absolutely nothing to do with shrinking like the Silver Age's one does. He's just really strong, but also incredibly short. So he just starts wailing on this guy, and nothing affects him because of the thinking cap mind waves, something or another. And eventually he just gets clocked. And so they go back to Artie's place, at which point Ray Palmer jumps out of the telephone.
I love when this happens, when shrinking characters go through phone lines.
It's such an interesting method of travel. But so Artie has no memory of stealing anything, and then the Thinker just walks through a wall, I guess. That's definitely what's happening in this panel. And so then a fight happens between the Atoms and the Thinker. They imprison the Thinker imprisons them all in a cage. Ads.
An electrified cage.
Yes, he electrifies it just in case. I guess the Thinker didn't realize that the Silver Age Atom can shrink more to less than 6 inches tall, so Ray just shrinks more and goes straight through the fence.
Yeah, he
and
says
picks up some wire snips,
and then he totally doesn't. Of course,
there's like a moment too where he's going through the fence. He's like, "Whoa, this feels so big going through this," and I'm like, bro, your powers, you said you can shrink. Like, this should not be surprising to you.
Yeah, so he then grabs some wire cutters or like shears, which I guess in the 60s, those things didn't have rubber handles like they do now. So he just cuts this electric fence with something metal. And I can tell you that's not a good idea.
It's not safe, I can tell you that.
Yeah, so they then, both of these Atoms then go to, I think, Al Pratt's lab or something, and just whip up some sci-fi inventions in like an hour. So Al Pratt makes a thinking cap energy detector to track down the Thinker, and then Ray Palmer just makes a vibrational something, or he makes a vibrator. That's what it is. That's what he calls it. Not kidding. This vibrator of will shift us there in the wink of an eye. That's a line. So he just figures out interdimensional travel in like an hour, I guess. And at this point, the Thinker is robbing an oceanic museum where there's a model ship that Silver Age Atom goes into, and Golden Age Atom throws the ship at the Thinker, at which point Ray gets out and just starts messing with his cap, effectively defeating the Thinker. And then, kind of pseudo-epilogue scene, Ray Palmer is with his fiancée, Jean Laurie again. Laureen. And is asking Jean about her, the television actress mother from the very beginning. And we find out that the judge ruled the baby belonged with the mother. and Jean's very happy about this because she basically took the case personally, saying that when she has kids with Ray Palmer, she wants to keep up her law practice and, you know, be able to also have kids and not have them taken away because she doesn't have free time or something. And that's the episode, or the issue.
Yep. Well, that marriage worked out well, as we already referenced. And I love how they do this B plot, but then it's literally just in like the first 2 pages and the very last page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not intercut at all.
It really makes no sense. Doesn't really tie with the story at all. Yeah.
It's kind of odd that there wasn't like halfway through, like, here's a court scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I thought the action in this issue particularly was pretty great.
I agree. I think there were some good scenes and definitely like used the shrinking power of Ray Palmer like interestingly, and also how he can change his mass at will.
Yeah. Like, especially, I mean, it ties in with the stupid, like, ridiculous plots, but like when you show up to an oceanic museum and the thinker can do just whatever he wants with his ridiculous helmet, it's like the atom is weaving through cannonballs. And then earlier he was like dive boarding off of harpoons.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alprat's just there.
He punches the cannonballs. I thought that was kind of funny.
So I will wrap us up with the other bookend, which is Adam 36. At this point, we're in 1968, which I think we got farther in the Flash episode, but this is the farthest issue on this episode. And so I think this is a great cover as well. Not quite as great as the last Green Lantern issue, but we have one of these covers where it's a character bursting through the cover of the comic, similar to like Cap's reappearance and things like that. And it teases Adam versus Adam. And so we start on Earth 2. We have Al Pratt's friends. They're trying to set him up with some woman. And there's some weird narration about like how married women see their like bachelor male friends. They see them as, it's like some weird, says something about like, sees them as like bulls, or they're bulls and these bachelor friends of theirs are like red flags. It's so weird.
Yeah.
And Ray, not Ray, Al is like, well, what's wrong with her? She's so perfect. And it's like, first of all, Al, you're like a 5'2" tiny man who weighs like 100 pounds. Like, canonically, this man is like the most feeble person in the world. Like, no, I'm not even trying to really shit talk people who are short, but like that is the entire point of his character, is that he's just a very short and weakling man who just happens to have trained really hard to have crazy strength and like fighting abilities. It's really like it's a pretty ridiculous gimmick for a superhero.
I mean, I'll say I like his son better.
Yeah. His legacy, beyond just Ray Palmer, who's not, of course, not directly related to, every other iteration of the Adam legacy is way more interesting. And so he shows up and knocks on the door, and it's like, oh, this is how they're trying to screw me over. And the woman answering the door is like 50 years old. But no, actually, all of the women around them are turning old. And also in the same house, some random dudes are robbing them with weird like ray guns. And so Al is like, oh, I'll just go to Earth 1, because this follows all of the previous issues that we've been talking about, where there's this theory that whatever happens on both Earths. So that's the constant excuse. It's like, oh, well, some crazy shit just happened here. Let me go tell my buddy with the exact same identity as me that some crazy shit is about to happen. Or maybe it's already happened, whatever. And so Al is like, oh, let me go to Earth 1. And he's able to, again, just like the Green Lantern, he's able to very easily cross dimensions. And it's like the whole special part in the first place was like the Flash had these insane powers. to transport between dimensions, but whatever. And Ray is busy catching some goons robbing a gun collection in a museum. And there's a really awesome action moment here where he's shrunken down. He grabs onto this guy's like middle finger and then distorts his mass and like puts pressure on his finger and is just able to like flip this guy through the air. And it's pretty awesome. And then suddenly everyone in the room has amnesia, but we later learn that it's not amnesia. They're like regressing in age, maybe, but there's not like the physical effect like there was with the women earlier. And so Ray doesn't even know that he's the Atom. He barely knows his fiance, Jean Loring. And Al Pratt shows up and he's like, "Hey, Atom." And Ray's like, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I don't know why I'm wearing this thing. I don't know why I'm 6 inches tall." And throughout this issue, there are these hilarious moments where Al Pratt, as a normal-sized human, but again, he's not normal-sized, reaches down and like presses his finger against Ray's palm to like re-enlarge him. And it happens like 3 times in this issue. And I just find that like the idea of that hilarious, of like this giant man reaching down and like pressing this guy's finger. And each time Ray doesn't like, he has no idea what's going on. So it's like kind of against his will. I don't know. It's just funny. And then the plot just turns into shit. I have no idea really what happened. I was getting a little annoyed as like on this final issue for whatever reason, but it didn't help the way the plot was. So Al Pratt has this theory that somehow going to Earth 2 will fix Ray's memory. Of course, in the end, it has nothing to do with his memory anyways. And so Ray does remember things and or ages back up or something, but then for seemingly no reason just starts trying to beat the shit out of Al Pratt and is just fighting him. And so we get some decent fight scenes of the two Atoms fighting, but again, Al Pratt's powers / fighting style is not interesting at all. So it's really just a guy in a stupid costume getting beat up by a little 6-inch dude. But there is some good action here by Gil Kane. And then Al thinks, oh, if we switch back again to Earth 1, it'll fix everything and come full circle. But something goes wrong and they end up on like this weird between world, and they're like in a desert looking environment or something, but then like a mystical plant starts grabbing Ray Palmer. And so that's when he presses his button again. And Ray Palmer, he's similar to Barry Allen, where I guess his activating his powers, his shrinkage automatically switches in and out of his costume.
I think they say in the issue that like Ray Palmer's like always wearing his costume, but for whatever reason, when he's normal sized, it's just invisible and also intangible.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. But
and so somehow at some point something changes while they're on this between world, and so they start teaming up, and then I think they team up to attack radio towers. I'm pretty sure that's what happens.
So from what I remember, I don't know if they like have a plan, but they finally get back to Earth 1, and Ray becomes a 14-year-old and is like, I don't know who you are to Al Pratt, but I have to go to some science thing on the hill. We're going to launch rockets.
Yeah.
And then he runs up there, and then there's this like radio tower or something. And I think Al Pratt like hypothesizes that he's still like not in a right state of mind from switching from the 2 different worlds for whatever strange reason. So 14-year-old Ray Palmer just grabs a rock and starts beating the shit out of this radio tower. And then he just re-ages up, and they're like, oh, I get it. There was a new star being born that was sending off like radio waves or some shit, and then it was bouncing off this tower into something else, and then turning all of the men in this specific area younger.
The funny thing would be, though, is that Ray Palmer does get turned into a teenager and joins the Teen Titans in the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was just a big old foreshadowing.
And I think we'll see, in fact, I believe, yeah, it's 0 Hour, which maybe, I don't know if we actually see it during the miniseries, but I believe so. We will see Ray Palmer de-aged, and in the same story, Al Pratt dies. So this is almost some weird foreshadowing, and we will sort of get back to this. But the plot for this issue is just ridiculous. Like, there's no villain.
Yeah.
There's like random goons in the beginning, but then they don't even really go back to that. And then it's just over. I was confused.
Yeah. Al Pratt goes on a date. Everything's fine.
Yeah, the epilogue is they're both happy with their dates. And again, Ray Palmer and his date, his fiance Jean Maureen, doesn't quite work out in the end. But so, what did you guys think overall about the Atom stuff?
I prefer reading the Atom when he's in the Justice League. On his own, it's kind of a struggle.
It's funny because, like, for me, reading the Atom, I'm obviously comparing him to Ant-Man, and there are some similarities there. I mean, there's obviously some big differences too. Both of them I think have their strengths. I mean, that whole thing with the Atom coming through the telephone line, I thought that was really cool. Like, there's a lot to explore there. But yeah, I felt like the Green Lantern stuff was just a little bit stronger. I think it's because the Earth 1 or the Earth 2 counterpart for Green Lantern is a little bit more fleshed out than the one for Atom. I don't really think he wasn't really. I don't know. I just didn't really register the Earth 2 Atom as much.
Yeah, I think the action scenes in the Atom are more interesting. Like Vince and I have been discussing in this podcast already, and just the neat like little things and like weird stuff that happens because the Atom's 6 inches tall. But I don't know, just personally, like as a whole, I kind of enjoyed the Flash issues more than I have either these Green Lantern or Atom issues.
I fully agree with you.
Tying all the Crisis Cast together.
There you go.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So obviously, some of this era of Batman and Superman and even Wonder Woman, it's constantly collected. And then, as you expect from the Trinity, and then Green Lantern and Flash, they're kind of the second tier. And especially this era of the early Silver Age, because they're very influential. There are Silver Age omnibuses for Flash and Green Lantern, and when they used to have the Chronicle paperbacks. But then you get like the next tier of Silver Age characters, where it's and these were also reinventions of Golden Age heroes, where you have the Atom and Hawkman, and you had archives for them, but we will see if we get Silver Age Hawkman and Atom omnibuses and eventual like split up paperbacks anytime soon. I would really love that, because I think maybe the writing and the overall characterization isn't necessarily as strong as Barry Allen and Hal Jordan, but I think actually in certain ways the art on Hawkman, which a lot of that was Joe Kubert, and then Gil Kane's art over in Atom, I think the characters, their power sets, at least for the era, were really interesting, and you could get a lot of interesting artistic things done. And so DC, I will take a Silver Age Atom omnibus anytime soon.
I mean, here's the thing where you mentioned Joe Kubert art. I mean, he's one of the greatest artists ever, and I would totally take a Hawkman book collection by Kubert. I mean, I'm going to say, I'll go on to that. Also, I'll take some Sergeant Rock as well, because that's also loosely collected in color. But as far as the Atom goes, it's one of Ray Palmer's costume is one of my favorite costumes. It's just so sleek and good.
Yeah, that's another fantastic Gil Kane design.
But Dan, did you like the Atom? You kind of hinted at him a little bit.
Yeah, I think I really like his whole setup. Like I said with the telephone thing, and I think there's a lot of extra things that come with his fighting style compared to Ant-Man's. I mean, I like those type of characters. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to read more about Atom. I'm not sure for reading any more Atom issues during this podcast, but I mean, so far, yeah, it's just been
part of the Justice League by now, right?
I
I'm
want to say
not certain.
no, because I think he mentions that he's never met the Golden Age Atom yet, which I feel like if he was on the Justice League, he would have met it with the crossovers you already mentioned.
Yeah. Well, we will see as we keep going on the episodes.
Because it was
certain people joining.
Yeah, Green Arrow is the first person to join after the original 7, followed by the Atom. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, pretty much we're done with solo books for quite a while.
yay!
The next episode we will be talking about the first quote unquote crisis, which will be issues of Justice League of America with the Justice Society showing up. And we'll be reading basically that setup where it's issues of Justice League, usually with the Justice Society showing up for like a bunch of episodes. And then eventually when we get to the Big Daddy crisis, then we'll have some tie-in books. But I mean, because Dan, he's a big Ant-Man fan, and we've been talking about the Atom. We mentioned, obviously, this is Silver Age Atom, and then we referenced the teenage era for Atom when he was the leader of a weird iteration of the Teen Titans. One story I want to highlight, in fact, give me half a second, right here.
That was more than half a second.
Probably the coolest era of the Atom is this book called Sword of the Atom.
Yep.
And this is like mid 80s, I think.
Pretty cool.
And this is
like 86 to be exact.
This is Gil Kane back to draw the character, and he's shrunken down. He permanently, like he can no longer resize himself up. He's shrunken down permanently in like the jungle, and he has a sword. And so he picks up a sword, and he fights like snakes and like miniature people, and he like falls in love with this princess. It's pretty badass.
Yeah, he finds like the society that's like super microscopic, and becomes like their superhero.
That's actually really cool. I might need to check.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a little hard to find this right here, but it's 100% worth it if you ever come across it.
Is that book all of it?
Yes.
Oh wow! I thought it ran. I mean, I can't really see how thick it is for here, but I thought that book ran for a pretty like a good lofty sum of issues.
No. Well, you might be getting it confused with something. This is basically it was a mini series, and then there were like 2 specials.
Oh, okay.
But shortly after this, when he finally gets resized and everything, so 4-issue miniseries and 3 specials. But shortly after this, in the late 80s, he had another ongoing series which lasted like almost 2 years or so. Which it wasn't quite as interesting as this. And then the Atom, obviously, he is a reinvention of the Golden Age Atom, but then there was another iteration of the Atom in like the mid 2000s named Ryan Choi, which kind of took on the legacy. And I think we'll briefly see him at some point in this podcast way down the line. And then he was brutally murdered. And then Jeff Lemire did a very short Atom, not really a book, they were backups, but unfortunately DC never collected that. But I like the Atom. He's really cool. He's got a great costume. Obviously, the shrinking powers are always fun.
Yeah, it's funny. Like overall, like after doing 3 podcasts now and being exposed to 3 different characters from DC, I mean, I honestly am interested in looking more into all 3 of them. There wasn't one that I read and I'm like, no, I'm not into that. They're all really cool characters.
Batman. I'm just kidding. You've already read some Batman.
Batman stuff. But I'm excited.
All right. On that optimistic note, we'll call it a day. And tune in next time for Crises on Earths 1 and 2.
Bye.
Peace.